The Weight of Revenge, written by Reuben White. Chapter 1. Shadows of Brotherhood. The sun hung low on the horizon, casting long shadows across the endless plains of the American frontier. In the distance, the rugged peaks of distant mountains stood sentinel against the amber sky, their silhouettes etched against the fading light. It was a land of vast expanses and untamed wilderness, where the winds whispered secrets of long-forgotten battles and the echoes of the past lingered in every gust. Amidst this breathtaking landscape, two figures rode side by side, their horses kicking up dust clouds as they made their way across the open range. Jack and Tom, their names spoken in hushed tones by those who knew them, were legends of the frontier, a pair of brothers bound by blood and forged in the crucible of the West. As they rode, their laughter rang out across the plains, carried on the wind like a melody of old. They were inseparable, their bond unbreakable, their loyalty unwavering. To those who saw them, they were the epitome of brotherhood, a shining example of what it meant to stand together in a world that sought to tear them apart. But beneath the facade of friendship, a darkness lurked, a shadow that hung over their camaraderie like a storm cloud on the horizon. It was a darkness born of secrets, betrayals, and sins that lay buried beneath the surface, waiting to be unearthed. And though Jack and Tom rode as brothers, their hearts weighed heavy with the knowledge that their bond was built on shaky ground, a fragile alliance that could crumble at any moment, leaving them at odds with each other and with themselves. As they rode deeper into the heart of the frontier, the shadows grew longer, casting an eerie pall over the landscape. And though neither man spoke of the darkness that lurked within them, they both knew that it was only a matter of time before it consumed them both. For on the vast expanse of the American frontier, where the sun sets on endless plains and the winds whisper tales of bygone days, even the strongest bonds can be broken by the shadows that dwell within. Chapter 2. The Flames of Betrayal. The land dispute had simmered for months, a feud fueled by greed and pride that threatened to tear apart the fragile peace of the frontier. Jack and Tom found themselves caught in the crossfire, their once unbreakable bond tested to its limits as they stood on opposite sides of the divide. It started with a simple disagreement, a boundary line drawn in the dust that neither man was willing to yield. Words turned to insults, insults to threats, until at last the simmering tension boiled over into violence. On a sweltering summer afternoon, tempers flared and fists flew as Jack and Tom squared off against each other, their anger a wildfire that swept across the plains. Guns were drawn, shots rang out, and when the dust settled, the damage had been done. But it was not until that fateful night, when the moon hung low in the sky and the stars blinked down like silent witnesses, that the true extent of the betrayal was revealed. As Jack lay sleeping in his bed, his dreams haunted by the spectre of violence, a shadowy figure crept through the darkness, a flickering flame dancing in his hand. The smell of smoke filled the air as the figure approached Jack's ranch, the flames licking hungrily at the wooden beams of the homestead. By the time Jack awoke to the sound of crackling flames, it was too late. The fire had already taken hold, devouring everything in its path with a voracious hunger. With a cry of anguish, Jack leaped from his bed and rushed outside, but the flames were too fierce, the destruction too complete. As he watched helplessly from the safety of the open plain, Jack's world crumbled around him, consumed by the inferno that had been unleashed by his once beloved brother. And as the last embers died away and the smoke cleared, Jack emerged from the ashes, his spirit aflame with grief and rage. For deep in his soul, he knew that it was Tom's treacherous hand that had set his home ablaze, a betrayal as deep as the canyons carved by time, a wound that could only be healed with blood. And as he stood amidst the ruins of his once proud ranch, Jack vowed to exact vengeance as fierce and unforgiving as the flames that had consumed it. Chapter 3. The Fire Within. The night was alive with the crackle of flames as Jack stood amidst the smouldering ruins of his once proud ranch. Embers danced in the air like fiery sprites, casting eerie shadows on the scorched earth. But amidst the devastation, there burned a fire within Jack, a fire fueled by grief, anger, and the need for justice. With a heavy heart and a steely resolve, Jack made his decision. He would seek revenge against Tom, the man who had betrayed him and reduced his home to ashes. No longer bound by the bonds of brotherhood, Jack's sole purpose now was to bring Tom to account for his crimes. As dawn broke over the horizon, Jack set out into the unforgiving wilderness, his path uncertain but his determination unwavering. With each step, he felt the weight of his grief and the fire of his rage pushing him forward, driving him ever closer to his quarry. The journey was long and arduous, fraught with peril at every turn. Jack traversed treacherous canyons and navigated winding rivers, his senses honed by years of living on the edge of civilization. But amidst the rugged beauty of the frontier, there was no room for sentimentality, only the cold, hard reality of survival. Each encounter with Tom brought Jack closer to his target, closer to the reckoning that awaited them both. Whether it was a chance encounter on the open plain or a fleeting glimpse through the trees, Jack felt the tension mounting with each passing moment. But as the days turned into weeks and the weeks into months, Jack's resolve only grew stronger. He would not be deterred by the dangers that lurked in the shadows or the obstacles that lay in his path. For Jack knew that he carried with him the fire of vengeance, a fire that would burn until justice had been served. And so, with his eyes fixed on the horizon and his heart set on retribution, Jack pressed on, his journey fueled by thoughts of revenge and the unshakable belief that, in the end, justice would prevail. Chapter 4. Shadows of Regret. The weight of guilt bore heavily upon Tom's shoulders as he fled into the lawless expanses of the frontier, his heart heavy with remorse for his betrayal of Jack. Each step he took was haunted by the spectre of his past, the memories of their once unbreakable bond now twisted and tainted by his own treachery. As he rode, Tom found himself consumed by thoughts of what he had done, of the fire he had unleashed upon Jack's ranch, of the destruction he had wrought in the name of greed and pride. The echoes of his betrayal reverberated through his mind like a relentless drumbeat, a constant reminder of the sins he could never undo. But try as he might to outrun the demons of his past, Tom found that they were never far behind. The guilt gnawed at him like a hungry beast, tearing at his conscience with each passing mile, until at last he could bear it no longer. With a heavy heart and a troubled mind, Tom sought refuge in the lawless expanses of the frontier, where justice was as scarce as water in the desert, and the only law was that of the gun. Here, amidst the rugged beauty of the wilderness, he hoped to find solace from the torment that plagued him, to escape the relentless pursuit of his guilt. But even as he sought to flee from his past, Tom found that it was always waiting to catch up with him. The haunting echoes of his betrayal followed him wherever he went, tormenting him day and night with the knowledge of what he had done, of the pain he had caused. And though he rode on, driven by the desperate hope that he could leave his past behind, Tom knew deep down that there would be no escape from the shadows of regret that haunted him. For in the unforgiving world of the frontier, where justice was as elusive as a mirage on the horizon, the sins of the past were always waiting to be reckoned with. Chapter 5. The Dance of Shadows. In the vast expanse of the untamed wilderness, Jack and Tom engaged in a deadly game of cat and mouse, each move bringing them closer to the inevitable confrontation that awaited them. Like shadows in the night, they stalked each other across the rugged landscape, their every step guided by the unyielding determination to emerge victorious. Tension hung thick in the air as they drew closer to their final reckoning, each encounter fueling the flames of their bitter rivalry. Whether it was a chance meeting on the open plain or a fleeting glimpse through the trees, Jack and Tom danced around each other like predators circling their prey, their senses honed by years of living on the edge of civilization. But as the days turned into weeks and the weeks into months, the tension between them reached a boiling point. The air crackled with electricity, the silence broken only by the sound of their footsteps echoing across the wilderness. They were on a collision course with destiny, hurtling towards a final showdown that would determine the fate of them both. And so, on a moonless night beneath the shadow of a long-forgotten ghost town, Jack and Tom faced each other across a dusty street, their eyes locked in a silent exchange of hatred and defiance. The air was thick with anticipation, the tension palpable as they stood on the brink of oblivion, and then with a thunderous roar, the gunfire erupted, a symphony of death and destruction that echoed across the plains, a testament to the violence that had consumed them both. Bullets flew like angry hornets, tearing through the night with deadly precision as Jack and Tom fought tooth and nail for supremacy. When the smoke cleared and the echoes faded away, only one man stood victorious. A solitary figure bathed in the pale light of the moon, his hands stained with blood and his soul burdened by the weight of his sins. For Jack had emerged triumphant, his thirst for revenge finally quenched, but at what cost? As he stood amidst the shadows of the ghost town, he knew that the price of vengeance was a heavy one indeed. A price paid not just in blood, but in the shattered remnants of his soul and the desolation of the frontier itself. Chapter 6. The Weight of Shadows. The moon hung low in the sky, casting a pale light over the desolate landscape as Jack and Tom faced each other in the shadow of the ghost town. Tension crackled in the air like electricity, the silence broken only by the pounding of Jack's heart and the rasp of his breath. With a thunderous roar, the gunfire erupted, a symphony of death and destruction that echoed across the plains, a testament to the violence that had consumed them both. Bullets flew like angry hornets, tearing through the night with deadly precision as Jack and Tom fought tooth and nail for supremacy. In the chaos of the battle, Jack's mind was a whirlwind of fury and determination. He fired shot after shot, his aim true and his resolve unshakable as he sought to bring Tom to justice for his crimes. But amidst the carnage, there was no room for mercy, no room for forgiveness, only the desperate desire to emerge from the fray victorious. As the smoke cleared and the echoes faded away, only one man stood victorious, a solitary figure bathed in the pale light of the moon, his hands stained with blood and his soul burdened by the weight of his sins. For Jack had emerged triumphant, his thirst for revenge finally quenched. But at what cost? The desolation of the frontier stretched out before him like a barren wasteland, the scars of his vengeance etched into the landscape like lines on a map. And though he had achieved his goal, though he had brought Tom to account for his crimes, Jack knew that the price of vengeance was a heavy one indeed, a price paid not just in blood, but in the shattered remnants of his soul. As he stood amidst the ruins of the ghost town, Jack felt the weight of his actions pressing down upon him like a leaden weight. The echoes of the gunfire still rang in his ears, a constant reminder of the violence that had consumed them both. As he looked out over the desolate landscape, he knew that the shadows of his past would haunt him for the rest of his days, a constant reminder of the price he had paid for his thirst for vengeance. Chapter 7. Shadows on the Dust. As the echoes of gunfire faded into the night, Jack stood amidst the remnants of the ghost town, his heart heavy with the weight of his actions. The taste of victory was bitter on his tongue, tainted by the knowledge of all that had been lost in the pursuit of vengeance. With a heavy sigh, Jack realized the toll that his thirst for revenge had taken on his soul. The shadows of his past loomed large in the darkness, casting a pall over the once proud landscape of the frontier. In his quest for justice, Jack had become a slave to his anger and hatred, sacrificing his humanity in the process. But amidst the ruins of his vengeance, Jack found solace in the quiet stillness of the night. The stars twinkled overhead like distant beacons, their light a reminder that even in the darkest of times, there was still hope for redemption. And so, as the dawn broke over the horizon and the first light of morning illuminated the desolate landscape, Jack knew that it was time to lay his demons to rest. With a heavy heart and a weary soul, he turned his back on the ghosts of his past and rode off into the sunrise, leaving behind the shadows on the dust of the frontier. And though the scars of his vengeance would always linger, Jack took comfort in the knowledge that he had finally found peace. For in the end, it was not the pursuit of revenge that defined him, but the strength to rise above it, to face the shadows of his past and emerge from the darkness a better man. As the story draws to a close, Jack stands alone amidst the remnants of his vengeance, haunted by the price he paid, but determined to forge a new path forward. And though the frontier may be desolate and the road ahead uncertain, Jack rides on with hope in his heart, knowing that the shadows on the dust are but a fleeting memory of a past he has left behind. If you are enjoying adventures in the Wild West channel, hit the subscribe button for future posts